Hey,
Can you
great.
hear me?
Too much. Hey, great Thursday evening. It is a beautiful evening in the city of Brownsville, Texas, and we got some challenges going.
Mhm.
Well, we'll see. Let me tell you, one of the things that I think that everyone started to get a little bit on the hey, if it's good for one, it's got to be good for the other. And they started to nitpick on Pat Omada, kicking him off, not making him ineligible because they counted the months and blah 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 blah. So what started to happen is I think a lot of the individuals were questioning other candidates in regards to why do the rules apply to the rest of us and not to the Festivus, to the inner circle, the Saint Joe Mafia, the people that are in the buddy little circle. And I think Captain Bob was the one that had made mention of it this morning because last night he had spent all night on the phone with individuals that were sharing information with him. So, Captain Bob, what else have you found out?
What? I was not privy to this conversation, Bob. I feel left out. What's up?
So, Captain
What?
Bob, what information did you receive in regards to individuals' position on the ballot according to the charter?
Well, good evening, Roman and Erasmo. Thank you for inviting me to the Erasmo Live podcast. I got some several texts with verbiage, as they say it, verbiage from the uh, charter, certain pages with paragraphs circled with information stating that the charter states if you announce to run for office and you happen to be sitting on one of the boards like BCIC or GBEC, you must resign from the board. The rule is resign from the board if you're seeking office to the city commission or the mayorship, or don't run for mayor and don't run for city commission. Now, the two candidates that this affects is Miss Linda Macias running for commissioner, who sits on the BCIC board, and it also it affects in the high-profile mayor's race John Cowan, who sits on Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation board. He
Doesn't
either
Jessica,
needs to, he either needs to resign GBEC or not run for mayor. And from the Captain Bob studio on the Captain Bob series, I demanded that they make a move by 5 o'clock, which was today, because this happened at 11 o'clock. So they had plenty of hour to go resign, plenty of time to go resign their board position or not run for mayor or run for city commission. I gave them a beautiful window of opportunity to wrap it up, to follow the city charter. And I advised through the podcast to the city commissioners and the mayor, the present mayor, to get this cleaned up immediately, because we, the citizens, sit on top of the organizational chart and we're their boss. And we are demanding they clean up this mess, because they were all after Mr. Almohada because of charter rules. Okay, they went after Almohada. That's done. Almohada tried to get to the Texas Supreme Court. They said no. Okay, well, let's make it a fair playing field. What about them?
well, doesn't Jessica Tetro also sit on the GBEC board or on one of those boards and committees?
Well, McHale, Dr. G.F. McHale Scully, I talked after I dropped him off after the podcast because he wanted to be involved in that podcast today with the propositions, and he got blindsided by the late breaking news that CBS offered about this charter problem. Since the charter's in the forefront right now, he was surprised by it, but respecting the charter. So he said he was going to go back home. He had claimed on the podcast that there were other commissioners sitting on boards. As of an hour ago, I talked to him, and he said, "Oh, there's nobody else sitting on boards, just those two." That's what he's saying from his research. International businessman Arturo Trevino who's in Acapulco right now,
Must be nice.
was yeah, it must be nice. I talked to him a few times on the phone. It sounded like a fun time. All I heard was ladies around him. Uh, he sent some
How
pictures.
could you tell there were ladies by him talking on the phone?
I don't know who those ladies were, but they seemed in a joyous, festive mood.
But how could you
Boy,
tell,
that Arturo,
how could you tell they were ladies?
because their vocal cords, the
Are
noise.
you? I this is Women's Month, and according to Hershey's, men can also be women according to Hershey's. So how could
Yeah,
you assume that they're women, not men dressed as women?
that's kind of
How
sexist.
dare
I,
you?
I
That's not
don't
very
I
woke
don't
of
know.
you, actually.
This is what Mikhail told me an hour ago, that this podcast has too much homosexual jokes. I don't know what he meant by that,
No, it's not.
but
It's
I'm
not
starting to
Really,
wonder.
the porn blogger, the porn blogger, really?
Porn
it's not.
blogger told me that.
It's not.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much
It's
for.
not a homosexual joke. It's just a question. How can you tell that they were females?
And that's
Just
not homophobic. If anything, you're being slightly homophobic and anti woke by you assuming that these were that. Now, I'm not
I
saying
would
that
tell,
I would ever do that, but how could you assume that, Bob? That's on you, not on him.
you mean about Mikhail?
No, 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 no. But
The
Arturo,
women's
you're
voices
saying
that
that you
are
heard
so.
women and you don't know if they're women. You don't. Well, maybe they are women, or maybe
Well,
they're.
I think
I,
I have a trained ear on fine women's voices.
oh yeah,
I know.
well, yeah, that's right. You blew off all your male friends. Wait. But you said you blew off all your male friends, yet you're friends with Mikhail, the porn blogger, and you're also friends with Arturo. You didn't blow off all, and you're friends obviously with myself
Not
and
all of them.
Erasmo.
Well, I kept a few friends. Mikhail and me are comrades in the podcast blogger industry. That's it.
So you're
He
not
makes me
friends. You're
laugh. I
disassociating
don't.
yourself from the.
I'm
Sorry.
friendly with them. Okay?
Uh, oh, your friend. Well, now we have to define friendly,
I don't
don't we?
have guy friends. The only male
Okay,
friends I
okay. No,
have
seriously.
are the ones
All
who
right,
sit on
fine.
the board of directors.
Well, I'm
The
trying
only
to.
friends I have that are male sit on the board of directors of the Captain Bob series.
I do. Hello.
We're here. Well, as far as I can look at, I was looking at the GBIC board itself, but you're right. Jessica Tetro is not on the GBIC board, but John Cowan is, and I find it very strange that John remained as the chairperson of GBIC and didn't do that. But Erasmo shared with me that portion of the charter in terms of who can serve on it or not. My argument would be is that John Cowan has automatically resigned his position from GBIC. That doesn't mean he can't serve as a candidate. He automatically resigned, and I think Linda Macias has automatically resigned, and they shouldn't be privy to that, and that should have already happened by the city according to the charter.
Well,
It doesn't mean they can't be removed from the ballot, though.
let me ask you though. Then any decision. John announced in November, so then any decision that
Did he
made,
announce in November?
yeah. So any
Okay.
decision that he's made since then, can you go back and question any
You
decision?
might. I would argue. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice or anything like that. It's just my cursory knowledge of this stuff. I would argue that his if he was an announced candidate, yeah, but if he did announce that he is running for it with the words "I am a candidate for this particular position" in November, then why exactly didn't he have a treasurer on file with the city secretary until February? And have all the money that he spent, if he spent any, I'm assuming he did, but you never know. Telling people he's running as a candidate, he should have not had any of that stuff, because I think you have to. And that's kind of a problem that we're having with Tino or Celestino Villarreal, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Oh, in regards to the John and Jessica thing, I challenged it. I mean, I submitted a letter to the city attorney and to the city secretary challenging, them being on the ballot if they're sitting on a board or committee. So, with Captain Bob, and again, I'm following Captain Bob's lead on this one. So yeah, I'm following Captain Bob's lead on this one. Guys, choose. Either you're going to continue with your little committee or on that GBEC board, or you're going to get out of this race. I would prefer that they get kicked off the ballot.
Well, based on the reading of it, it's almost like the charter or the charter founders or whoever framed this particular charter the way it is didn't want people who are serving on committees to be running for office. And so wouldn't there be an argument that says that even city commissioners shouldn't be on boards because they're, throughout their term? But there are instances in the charter that allows for city commissioners to serve on certain boards based off of like GBIC or BCIC, or having an ex officio member with the mayor on these particular committees. So it's kind of what is the charter really saying?
The other one that we forgot about, and I think everybody's forgetting about, is Brian Martinez. He serves like on 12 boards.
Does he really?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Isn't he a member of the alphabet committee, whatever that is?
All of them. The LGBTQIA, also part of some other ones.
So I mean, I would argue again that that individual has automatically resigned his position, and maybe we should get Nurit on the line and ask her what she thinks, because she is a commissioner. She's also an attorney. Well, I don't have her phone number. Maybe Bob can call her and send her the link, and maybe she can come on and talk to us and tell us why, if she thinks that Brian has automatically resigned, or maybe he shouldn't be on the ballot. Maybe he isn't resigning.
Did you think of that, Captain Bob, of Brian Martinez?
Well, I don't have a number. If Martinez is on a board, he needs to resign the board or not run for office. This is serious. This is very serious. They're not following the rules. And the charter was founded in 1906, and it was meant as a guide point on governing. And
yeah, but they amended very many times. So yeah, it's not necessarily the charter. This particular provision may not have been in the charter in 1906.
Well, the other one is
we're now 2023, and they're breaking the rules. They made a huge spectacle of the Patamuada
and I agree
quest to get the ballot. And
I agree with you.
One thing is they announced for candidacy. Okay, that's step one. Well, step two, the ballots are getting printed, and they're on the ballots. And those ballots, from Commissioner De Los Santos said, cost a lot of money. I tend to not agree with the number he threw out on my podcast for printing ballots.
What was the amount that he gave you?
Getting printed. Yeah, huh?
What was the amount that he gave you?
He said $200,000.
No. No way. No, I don't think that's accurate. Now, I mean, there is well, I don't think it's that little, but I sincerely doubt that. I do understand that the city has a budget for elections. Back in the day when I followed the budget more thoroughly, they had a $250,000 line item for elections, whether or not there was an election or not that took place that year. An off-year election, they were still $250,000. So maybe that's what he's talking about, that there's a line item for that amount. But I sincerely doubt that that's the contract that had been approved to spend by the city commission, because that would have taken place, I think, in February, for the contract between themselves, the city, and the elections department of Cameron County.
I tend to believe Roy and your analysis of it. So let's leave that part alone. The main part is this, and this helps Erasmo. Erasmo should be. This is good for Erasmo. This is good for Stanton, and this might be good for Tetreault. Cowan is not following the charter. Cowan is not following the organizational chart that's there for the citizens, for the candidates, that were showing that the citizens are their boss. And Cowan, there's another key piece to this: approachability. You're supposed to be approachable, and Cowan is not approachable because he doesn't say a word, and he doesn't lend himself as a commissioner to citizens to talk or come on podcasts. So he's got a lot of negative things.
I would argue there's another aspect to what you're arguing, that he's not equipped. If Erasmo is correct that he was an announced candidate in November, I don't necessarily agree with that. I want to say he announced in January, because most definitely he was on Channel 4 in his office announcing that he was running for office. There was a big awesomeness, I guess, for him that he was on Channel 4 and 23 and announcing he was running for mayor. And he has run for office before. He ran 4 years ago. That's his first time. the election code stipulates that when you are an announced candidate, if you say, I, John Cowan, am a candidate for this office. Once you say that, you are required by the election code to submit a treasurer nomination. Now he does have, I believe, he should have a treasurer because he's an office holder currently. But if he's doing that, he should have moved that particular. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice, but I would argue that you should have then transferred that treasurer nomination form over to a mayoral office, since he's running for a completely different office. Now, I do understand that if you're running for, let's say you're a school board member and you're running for an office at the city, that you're supposed to do within 15 days, do another treasurer's formation or a treasurer campaign finance report. But I do not know that applies to somebody who's running for commission, running from being a commissioner to being a mayor. But he did not submit his treasurer form or nomination till February. And I would argue that he spent money more than $900, or maybe even accepted more than $900, but we don't know. We absolutely don't know. I do know that there's other individuals that have run for office before. I think there were not offices, but there was an instance last year where the arena people had a Facebook page and they were saying support the arena, but yet they never had a treasurer on file. So I believe they were fined by the Texas Ethics Commission. So I think it's important that we follow the Ethics Commission rules. I think it's important, and especially because John Cowan, your opponent, Erasmo, was claiming that he's going to fight more. He was the one who brought us back the Ethics Commission. He's all about ethics and transparency. Well, why are you not following the ethics when it comes to a treasurer on file with the city?
I agree. Something that got to be done. Something that got to be done. And again, one of the things that I think that I got, because I was reaching out to some people who are like, well, it's going to sound kind of petty. No, it isn't petty, because these individuals, they claim to be always by the book and always legit, and they follow the charter and they follow the organizational chart that they don't, like Captain Bob has mentioned. And guys, they don't. They bend the rules, and this is something that happened with Pat Armada. They bend the rules, in order to fit in their little thing. This is why when they did that, 2 terms and you can't run anymore, they worked around it so that it wouldn't affect Rose Gowen, just in the verbiage. It didn't affect Rose Gowen, but it screwed over Jessica Tetreault, which again, I think everyone in the city of Brownsville could say that they're very glad that she's gone and out of being a city commissioner. Now it's up to the citizens of Brownsville to make sure that she's completely out of all local politics by making sure that she doesn't make the runoff. And again, I don't mind if it's me and her in the runoff. I'll still kick her butt, but I'd rather take on John in the runoff.
Well, we got another little angle on this whole scenario. Erasmo and Roman, is something I just learned in the last week, and you guys are pretty well versed on this, is political patronage. And political patronage, I said, well, what is that? And they said, well, it's a patronage, patron. I got to listen to my patron. Okay, well, how does that have to do with any of this? And they explained to me that Helen Ramirez, the city manager, there's political patronage between her and Cowan, and that's not fair for Erasmo and the other candidates, for she's being used politically during this whole campaign for the mayor race, a political patronage, because he voted, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he voted to have her as a city manager.
Yeah, but so did Jessica. Everybody, with the exception of Roy, voted for her.
Well, that's political patronage. She owes those voters something for getting a $200,000 plus salary. She's a human being. It's political patronage.
But doesn't that I mean, I'm not going to defend that. I'm just saying, isn't every city manager, regardless if it's Helen or whether the one that was there before, the one that was there before that, it's kind of like with the superintendent, at the city at BISD, they are employed, their contract is approved or rejected by the commission or the particular board. I don't necessarily agree that this is an example of patronage.
Well, she's turning a blind eye and not conversing with the attorney, the city attorney, about this serious situation that popped up on the breaking news on the Captain Bob series about not following the charter. If they're still sitting on the board, because I gave them till 5 o'clock. It was 11 o'clock this morning. They had till 5 o'clock, or all hell's going to break out because they're not following the rules. Yet they want to go after Pat Amwaba. That's not,
and you're right, but shouldn't that have been something that the city secretary, who's been appointed by the commission to run the election, if the city secretary is the one that denied Pat, the city secretary should have informed all of these individuals that are members of boards right now that your position, we expect your resignation or whatever. Or there should have been an extra packet of information given to all of them. Although they were given a charter. If you go get your packet, Erasmo, correct me if I'm wrong, did they not give you a copy of the charter?
Yeah.
So you're supposed to be knowledgeable of the charter. So they should have been knowledgeable of the charter that says, hey, I don't have this particular position, therefore you have to resign before you announce, and they didn't do it. But the argument is going to be whether or not they automatically resign. It's kind of like what happened with Pat Almada when he was mayor, and he decided, he announced that he wanted to run for county judge back in the 90s. He automatically resigned from being the mayor at that particular moment in time. Maybe they did the same thing. I don't know. I don't know if there's an automatic resignation provision in the charter. I don't recall it being there, but it could be an assumption that it's there. It's a silent automatic resignation.
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
Well, you have a good point about the city. You have a good point about the city secretary. It might be her duty, obligation to address this disturbing fact that they are not following the charter. But the city secretary, I believe, the city manager's above her, so it causes a blemish on her.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is Helen Ramirez? She was previously the executive director of GBIC, right? Wasn't she? Before Constanza Minor was made interim, and that occurred when she became the city manager. That's or correct. when did that stop her position as executive director?
I think it's when they hired this new individual.
When they hired the city manager, or when they hired Constanza Miser, or is Constanza Miser just the interim position?
I think she's hired.
She's hired. Okay, I don't know when that took place. So maybe there is an argument to be made by Bob. Let's say if you're right at Erasmo that John resigned his position. I mean that he announced in November, whether or not Helen was still there or not. Maybe Helen should have made that particular point if she was still at GBIC.
Well, either way, I did submit a challenge to the city secretary and to an email to the city attorney. I'm going to see what they responded. I'll share it with you all to see what happens.
Yeah. Look forward to it. But there was something else that I had pointed out to you, Erasmo, and earlier today, I think, is there's an issue with Celestino Villarreal Jr.
Yeah.
Everyone has seen his signs, I'm sure. Some of my friends have actually told me, is he running for the district one? Is he from Southmost? And I'm like, why? Have you seen his signs? Like, well, no, I haven't seen them. They're very dark, and he's wearing a hood, and I don't know what he was thinking or who thought that was a good idea for that particular sign. I didn't realize he was, it almost looks like he's Black Lives Matters. I have no idea. Anyway, his signs say Tino Villarreal. When you look at the city secretary's website and you look at the list of candidates that are there, it says Tino Villarreal. But Tino is not his name.
No.
Tino is his nickname. And when you look at the election code, I think it's 251.031, I want to say, in that range, or 52.031. It talks about how your name on the ballot is supposed to appear. It says your name, the way it appears is your first name, your given first name, or an initial of your first name, followed by a nickname, followed by the last name, and followed by a suffix if you want to. Well, if you're going to use a nickname, you can use the middle. You can use your first name's initial, which in this case Celestino would be a C. So it would read C.Tino with quotes or with parentheses. He's not doing that. He actually asked in his application for a place on the ballot, he wants his name on the ballot to say Tino Villarreal. That's not appropriate. That cannot occur. His name cannot appear that way in the ballot, at least according to election code. Now, I don't know if that means that his application is incomplete and therefore the city secretary can reject it. I don't know. She obviously has already accepted it. They're using Tino Villarreal. His signs say Tino Villarreal, but he should not be able to do that. So there has to be before these ballots are printed, his name needs to change. It cannot appear as Tino Villarreal. That could be nitpicking.
But what about about
Hmm?
Trey sounds? Trey ran as Trey. His name's not Trey.
It should not have read as Trey. It should not have. You can look at the election. You can look at the election code. It stipulates how a name is supposed to appear. His name is supposed to appear either first name given, whatever legal name you're using, and or initial if you're using a nickname. The nickname.
Tony Martinez ran as Tony.
I think it said Antonio quote Tony and quote Martinez.
Tony, big old Tony. I remember the sign.
Well, the sign said Tony, yes, but I'm talking about the ballot itself.
Oh, I'm not sure.
The ballot itself cannot say Tino.
And I think you're right. I mean, I'm not completely sure, but I think on the ballot it did say Juan, and then like quote Trey, quote unquote Mendez. I think you're right on the ballot being, but on the Tino thing, I'm not sure which one it is.
Yeah, but like I said, when you look at all the list of candidates, it says Tino Villarreal. It doesn't say his name. That's number one. But when you look at his actual application on the place on the ballot, he is requesting that his name on the ballot appears Tino Villarreal. His name on the ballot cannot appear that way. I do not know. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I do not know if that says the application is bad and he has to refill it out again, or if they can just say, hey, I want to see how your ballot can appear. It's going to appear this way. Is that okay? Whatever. And they made a deal that way. But it should have been announced that way at the ballot draw. You were at the ballot draw, Erasmo.
So if okay, then my question is, if the ballot was accepted incorrectly, it's too late to file a new ballot.
Mm-hmm.
A new request to be on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
So is he out?
No, that's just it. I don't know if that audit and this would be a really great question for Jared Hakama, because Jared Hakama is an expert when it comes to, you're supposed to look at the four corners of the ballot application. If there's any errors in the four ballot, then you can decide whether or not you can reject it or not reject it, or if the information. For example, if in your application it says what your occupation is, it says required. It is required to be there. Yeah. Therefore, I assume that the Tino Villarreal, the name on the ballot, how you want it to appear, is required, but there could be somewhere in the regulations in the election code that says, well, if you leave this particular blank, we're automatically going to use your legal name and assume that's what you want. So maybe it doesn't make it a faulty ballot in the four corners of the ballot. It may not make it faulty. I don't know. But either way, his name Tino cannot be there. His name cannot be Tino Villarreal.
Well, if he gets away with it, and some of these other guys get away with the nickname, maybe when I run in the future, I'll just put Captain Bob.
Well, the problem with you though, Bob, is you have Captain Space Bob. Your nickname must be one word, and it must be no more than 10 letters. And if you were to do Captain, it would be 7 plus Bob. It would be 11, and it's 2 words. You would have to combine it. It would be Captain one word. But your nickname is not Captain Bob one word. It's Captain Bob. Captain Space Bob.
Could Erasmo have used Erasmo Cheese Castro?
People do call him Cheese. There's I guess an argument to be said. How long has he been known as Cheese, and is he used that consistently? That could be considered a name. It's not a political slogan. It's not a title like doctor.
Well, I can actually real close, and I'd considered it. Just putting Erasmo on the ballot instead of Erasmo Castro.
No, you have to have a last name. That's required. Again, the name on the ballot is required. It says first name, nickname if you're going to use it, last name, and the suffix if you're going to use the suffix. And that would be like a junior or the third or senior.
I'm glad I didn't do that then.
Yeah, then you would have had problems.
But so I questioned everything, and I'm hoping that Captain Bob also submits a question to the city secretary and to the city attorney in regards to these candidates. And I want you to include Captain Bob Martinez, to your list, right next to Linda Macias, because he's another one that's on all these boards and committees.
Mm-hmm. Who? Oh, Brian Martinez. I think you said Tony Martinez. I think you meant Brian.
Brian Martinez.
There you go. Well, there's also another thing I found interesting about Tino Villarreal, and that is that he submitted his treasurer and his application for a place on the ballot on February 16th. If you look on his Facebook page, he's asking for money for his campaign on February 13th.
Yeah.
On February 3rd, he even said the rumors are true. I will be running for this, but he uses an actual slogan, a picture, artwork, everything on February 3rd. I'm pretty sure that cost him some money. Number one. Number two, that is his announcing to Unireal for this position. When you say this can't name and for this position, that's an announcement that you're a candidate for that office. And he did that on February 3rd. Why didn't you have a treasurer on file? And the reason this matters to me, I know people think, oh, you're just nitpicking, you're a gadfly, whatever. If these individuals are making mistakes like this for their campaigns, what other mistakes are they going to make when they're commissioners, when they're making millions of dollars of decisions? The budget is over $124 million. You're signing contracts or approving contracts for thousands of dollars. If you can't even do the little things of making your campaign work properly, then how can I expect you as a person? That's why these things matter. And if anybody and any citizen in the Brownsville or the state of Texas, any citizen of Texas can actually file a complaint, a sworn complaint with the Texas Ethics Commission if they feel that they want to do that, and show that, I'm right. I will not file those kinds of complaints because I don't. I want to help people and I want to be informative to you as much as I can. And I think Tino Villarreal has made some mistakes. He can rectify them, I guess, but it doesn't look good for him as a candidate.
Well,
I will say that.
My concern is they think that the rules don't apply to them, and and something that Captain Bob mentioned is that they can nitpick who they can make these rules apply to, and I think that's inappropriate.
And some of these aren't rules; these are laws.
Well,
the election code is a law. It's not just a rule. Like, it doesn't say, these are laws that they're essentially. I argue that they're breaking. But again, I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a regular Joe Blow on the street making an argument and thinking I think that they could be breaking the law.
Breaking the law.
Yeah.
Breaking. Captain Bob, anything else, Captain Bob?
No, just thank you. The Cowan has a big blemish on his campaign for sitting on that GBEC board, not following the rules of the charter. It's all over the community right now. They think he needs to resign from the GBEC. I don't know if he's done it by today. I'm sure the podcast at the Captain Bob series alerted quite a few players, elected officials. I hope they get down to the bottom of this and resolve it quickly, because I got other things to talk about besides following them, not following the charter, and not being approachable, and not talking to the citizens of Brownsville like Jessica and Cowan do. I mean, Erasmo, you're following the organizational chart by being present with the citizens through the podcast. And I see you in person around town, moving around, talking to everybody. That's the way an elected official should be, and a candidate, not like Tetro and Cowan not coming forward to talk to the citizens. I've given them every opportunity, and they don't want to come around me, but I don't see them around town talking to nobody.
Well, the other, and I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that came out today, I don't know if you remembered that federal lawsuit that came against Jessica Tetro for not paying her employees. They were paying them like $1, $2 an hour wages out there, and the employees actually, won that case. And the only reason I brought it up was because there was one of these social media reporters that questioned her on it in regards to these individuals not getting paid, and she went out there and denied that it ever happened. I mean, they sent me the screenshot, and I thought it was amazing. And they were asking me, said, "Erasmo, do you know if this is actually true or not?" I go, "It's 100% true. The lawsuit was there. It was a federal lawsuit."
Was she a party to the lawsuit, or was it her spouse that was a party? The business
Car Wash Plus.
Okay,
but
is she an owner of that particular business?
She claims regularly that she's a businesswoman. She manages and runs the car wash. It's very, very well stated that she uses that as her employment. I mean, I need to go back and check.
But I don't recall her being a party to that particular lawsuit. That I think it was just, or that complaint with the EOC. I think it was just the car wash and whoever the owner was. And I don't know. I don't believe that Jessica is listed as the owner. But then again, I could be wrong.
I think you're very wrong. Well, not listed as the owner, because one of the things that I think we learned out of that lawsuit is that not even her husband is that named as a registered owner. Uh,
Okay,
they they
I
have
don't
like
know.
this, it's like one of these shadow little things or something or other.
I can't really speak to that. I just don't. I don't recall her being an owner of that particular business, and I don't believe she was a party of that particular lawsuit.
Well, she was. But let me check real quick since actually I'm curious to see if what is she is registered as. Let's see, where is she? Right here. Oh, she's not even on the ballot. Oh, there she is. She is
There's a
as
and the only reason I'm saying that is because if she wasn't a party to the lawsuit, you can't argue
she's
that
registered
this law.
self-employed, like she has a business.
She's a business owner, but
Yeah,
what business owner is she a business of?
I
You don't
mean,
know.
she does not selling jewelry.
I don't know.
Mary Kay.
I'm just saying because if you know
Why
if
are you
she
defending
if
Jessica today?
huh?
Why are you defending Jessica
I'm
today?
not defending Jessica. I'm just saying that I don't recall her being a party to that particular lawsuit. If that's an argument that somebody was making,
Uh,
I don't recall.
I think she was because she was questioned on it regularly, and I think she was trying to hide the fact that it had already been out there. But anyway, uh, I think it's important. I think one of the things that Captain Bob has just mentioned: just be transparent. Don't go out there and say it's not true. The car wash didn't get sued. It did get sued, and it got sued specifically because of the money that was coming in. And then did see the article where the car wash was made to pay these people back their money. I mean, she's headquartered. Her headquarters is there at that car wash.
Well, that's very true. She is there. There is a headquarters at that particular location. Yes, you're right about the
Dr.
headquarters.
Bob, what's your take on the slave owner Jessica Tetro?
On the what?
On the slave owner Jessica Tetro.
Wouldn't it
You're always
be?
putting me on, you always put me on the spot about Jessica. I'm just
Sure.
disappointed that she's not approachable and she's not talking to Captain Bob. For I've been a customer for over a decade
But
at
no
that
more.
car wash plus, and I've always been very friendly to her and Arturo Khalifa. Now that the campaign's going and I have a podcast, she doesn't want to talk to me. She didn't even wave at me in the city chamber
That
when I went to the
What?
city
Roy
hall the
waved
other
at
day.
you and talked to you, but Jessica did not wave to you. What?
screw
How
her.
dare she? What did you? Did she block you on Facebook like she blocked me many
No,
years
I'm
ago?
still on her Facebook. She's okay.
What?
She has
So
a
she won't wave to you, but she won't wave to you, but and she will not block you. Wow, that's interesting.
yeah,
She
yeah.
won't wave to me either, Bob. It's okay though.
I want to talk to her. I want to talk to her, but all my meetings are public. It's on a podcast. I want to talk to her about some things. I'm not going to be mean to her or set her up. I just want to talk to her about a few things. And I've invited her, and as somebody, one of her fans or supporters watching, I, I extend a kind invitation to the Captain Bob series to come talk to me, and also John Cowan. But I think they need
Maybe they'll
to
come
resolve
when
the
voters
situation.
get closer. I will say that Jessica Tetro is taking this campaign seriously. It's my understanding that she already has um, uh, phone bankers that are phone banking and Spanish, no less. Does anybody know if Jessica Tetro even speaks Spanish? I don't know, but her phone bankers speak Spanish, and it's like if you say you're not voting for her, they don't even try to convince you to vote for her. They just say, "Oh, well, we'll take you off the list. Thank you very much." So her phone bankers are not very good. Not that I want to help Jessica for the second time today and defend her, but if your phone bankers are not trying to convince people who tell you I'm not going to vote for her and not try to convince you, you're not cool. Maybe I'm not saying she's paying these individuals. They could be volunteers. We don't know that, but she's phone banking already, Erasmo. I don't know. Anybody know if John Cowan is campaigning phone banking already? Maybe just sending out text messages.
Roman, so what are your thoughts on the superintendent nominating himself for superintendent of the year? How do you think your bud buddy?
Is he nominating himself to be superintendent of the year? How is this working? Because I know that our mutual friend Maggie is out there complaining about something about superintendent of the year, but I don't know if he's nominating himself. What's that about? Maybe Erasmo, you can explain it to me.
Oh, he's requesting to be placed on the ballot for superintendent of the year. It's the
Is that is it a requirement that that your board approve you being nominated, or
Yes.
so the administration put it on the agenda to, hey, like maybe other people are nominating, but this is a part of the process. How does that work?
I'm not sure, but I mean, honestly, I think all these awards are a bunch of bull crap. You have to pay into them either way. I mean, it doesn't say anything for someone up there in Austin, Texas, to say, "Hey, you got a great superintendent." I think maybe the local teachers. I mean, one of the things that I think I would appreciate is for you to have the support of your staff and for them to nominate you instead of the school board that actually decides if they're going to extend your contract or give you a big old raise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I know that you're asking me about Jessica. I'm not going to speak for Jessica in any way, shape, or form, but I will say that there's some people that are upset because Jessica and others don't want to go out and do an audit, or don't want to do this questionnaire that's going to cost probably tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money to be able to pay for, when we already kind of know what the staff and them are going to say about the superintendent. And the reason they want to do it is so that they can have an argument to be able to get rid of him as being superintendent for cause. That way they don't have to pay out the buyout of the contract. That's kind of what they're doing. But I think that it's important that the process be followed, and whatever process needs to be followed, follow it. But I don't think spending tens of thousands of dollars to do this challenge question is necessarily the right way of doing it. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it. Just some people just want to get rid of him like right away, and not necessarily follow the process.
Chico Gonzalez is a moron. Probably
You can say that all you want to, but she's still on the board and you're not. So let's not say that about people that aren't necessarily calling them.
Sylvia Atkinson was on the board, and you think that was a great thing?
No, it wasn't. But she's sitting in federal prison. You're not,
But you want to
and neither is Jessica Gonzalez.
throw it out like, well, she's there and you're not. Screw her, Roman.
That's great, but she's smart enough. I mean, she's smart enough to do that.
Teachers, she's voted against staff, and you still want to consider her a good.
How is she voted for teachers? I voted against teachers and staff at Erasmo. She's given them thousands of dollars.
She's an imbecile. She's a stupid.
Whatever you want to say, you can say whatever you want to about people.
She's hurt students. She's going out. Supposedly, she hates individuals taking pictures with students, but she goes out there and takes pictures with kids with special needs at all times. She's an imbecile. She's stupid. She went back on her word that she was going to go out there and fight for the little folks. She isn't. She's out there fighting for the individuals that are putting money in pockets of political.
Oh, Derek. Yeah.
Stupid.
I'm not going to fight with you on this one.
Bring crayons when you get to speak to her. Yeah, she's an imbecile. Ponle casa.
She's talking about the other Jessica Tetra.
I still can't get over how he is out of touch with our Rasta as he wears tennis shoes with a step. Yeah, he's an idiot. We should ask for a climate study at all BISD employees on what they think. Oh, yeah, exactly. They don't want to because they know the answer. Why doesn't BISD allow comment?
And I'm with you on that one, Eddie. That's an argument to be made. I'm with you on that.
Where's that audit, Poncho? Exactamente. Guys, have a great evening. Social distance, face covering, hand sanitizer, still and all that crap. I'm done. Guys, see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Thank you, Captain Bob, and maybe Roman.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. See you in the morning. Be good to each other. Continue good to me. God bless.